Hi,
Yeah,
everyone. Hi, Upstarts. Good morning. Good afternoon if you're joining from another beautiful part of our planet. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone. I am joining myself, Nathan Bonnisseau, co-founder of Planet from Düsseldorf, the beautiful Altstadt. Sacha Ghiglione, welcome also to this fireside chat event. Fire we need. It's getting cold. It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
indeed, my pleasure as well to be with you and you screaming fire. So this is crazy. I love to be with you. We got to know it 2 weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to this exchange and for everybody to get some value out of it.
Absolutely. Sacha, you're the CEO and board member of the Swiss climate neutral green IT manufacturer Prime Computer. You're a trusted advisory board member of this. You provide a lot of startups with a lot of knowledge to understand strategic thinking, sustainability, transition. You are trying to motivate people to think, to act in a more sustainable way towards our home, the Earth, of course, where we're all tuning in from. You have also contributed to the European Technology Chamber and the Climate Action Commission at the European level. So you have your fingers in many pies, if I can say so, like this, always working towards the SDG goal, the sustainable transition, and working with these massive partners such as the UN and the EU and many more. Do you get some sleep? Are you okay?
When I'm home, I hope my little kids give me a little bit rest. But yes, no, of course, we're all doing that for a bigger purpose. I think this is a really exciting time, rather than back then just for greed. And I think overall, when I'm meeting with people, that we have a joint mission. Yes, it is. It is. If it's for the bigger purpose, it's obviously something that drives you more. But it's passion, and passion is fun.
Thank you. So absolutely, there's other ways to get rest than just purely sleeping. Also, the energy of adrenaline is here to support us. This morning, we are having rather provocative session, increasing profits by investing in the planet. A quick word of introduction on this topic. We are trying to discuss today how is it that we can use the resources that are investments? How can we use our money, our time, our efforts towards certain projects that will also not just benefit the planet, but also turn in a profit? In other words, what is the common denominator between creating sustainability and creating value for our planet and the entire chain of stakeholders? We will try to there's many different ways to approach this topic. Of course, we will try to cover as much as possible. I just want to recommend to all of the audience, anyone tuning in, to use the Q&A function. We will be chatting for around 20-25 minutes together, answering some of these questions that you ask here in the chat, and then we will see you in the other Q&A that we will share the link to in the chat as well, in the meta world, which Upstart has developed, and where we will be able to interact in 8 bits or 16 bits rather, actually, in this beautiful environment. So welcome everyone. Sacha, let's get in the thick of it. I wanted to ask you from your standpoint in these boards and collaborating with so many startups, what drives the decision of investment in these companies that are actually creating sustainability from an investor's perspective?
Yeah, so obviously a really important question and a good one. And I think investment is not just capital. Investment is time, is knowledge, all that. And my basic principle are three words, and I'm going to describe them a little better. But this is people, purpose, and value. So first of all, we always hear that the team, the people, the ones you want to work with, because I mean, and this is an expression, but we're both French, so sorry my French, but you don't want to work with assholes, right? Life is too short. So you want to work with people you like, you find motivational, and often is the driver's seat. The CEO needs to be someone who gets it, and you want to hang on, and you can advise, etc. but also when you're investing money. Purpose means I don't want to invest in a Kellogg's muesli company, right? Um, because it needs to have a bigger purpose of what you're doing. And obviously, this is the topic today. I I rather have a portfolio or help companies to reach a certain degree of changing communities, of changing the way how we behave towards planet Earth, and doing have a contribution to that, than, let's face it, than any fossil fuel company, for instance. And the last one was value. So it only makes sense for me if I can add value. So also, when I'm an investor, we're looking on a portfolio where who are the other investors? Does it make sense? Can I contribute? Because I am never someone who's just shutting up. So I want to help. And I think also on the advisory side, if you bring enough value to it, then it's appreciated because it's your time and you could better invest your time in doing something that attracts yourself. So it's on all sides. So people, purpose, value.
People, purpose, and value. That's three very good guiding north stars. Maybe one quick follow up, Sasha. How are you able to determine if the CEO gets it? If the team is not is not an asshole, as you say. Excuse my French too. But yes, how do you determine that? How do you make sure that the commitment is real? How do you verify this part of the commitment?
You and I, we have a bit of a life experience, I think. So there's a lot of gut feeling always in decisions you make. But then there is a generality of how they react to some certain questions, right? One question I love to ask in general is why now? Why you need to do that now? And with your solution with that? Because most of the people, it's a question that not everybody can answer. Just yeah, they gone with a value proposition. So, but a little bit deeper on why you as a person in that now. Um, yeah, so it's a little bit there. There are some tricky questions. Iman, we both hired a few people. We know how emotional intelligence can be triggered and what to ask for that. And I think it's also, I mean, not just the fact is he gets it, but also the fact that he needs to be into it, right? Because you're investing in a team. So.
Absolutely. And from my experience as an investee, it's also very interesting to have these different relationships with different investors. Some of them are very present. Some of them are also very much more silent in their position. Everywhere in between, with also different types of commitment to sustainability. All of our investors are well invested in sustainability, but in a different way for each. Do you have maybe also some guiding principle for the investees to actually find out if the investor is also committed to sustainability?
Yeah, I think this is depending in which round you are or if you're looking for funding, but that's definitely so. Honesty is one thing, right? We all it's always a numbers game, but then you have your projections and all that, and you actually know. I think from my perspective, if you're true and transparent, and this is what actually the the fight against climate change needs the most, which is, and we come to that beta. This is why you say this is going to be a little bit provoking, maybe also because there's so much nonsense going on and everybody hops on the marketing green train. And I think transparency, authentication, authenticity is really important. And I personally look for that in funding, but also want to give that. This is why I'm so open about rather be honest that you don't reach that goal than faking it.
This is something that absolutely we may get into a little later. One thing that we have also experienced, and that I'm sure you all have experienced, is this acceleration of investment into sustainability products, sustainability solutions, and also projects. There is a really fast picking up group of investors, new funds that are coming out that are labeled green, that are working on the greenness, let's say, of their investment. using a few rules such as blacklisting, as simple as that, all the way to having a deep assessment of the contribution to avoiding carbon, the contribution to reducing dependency on ecosystem services. There is a very big question of the valuation of nature and the valuation of sustainability. Can you tell us a bit more about your take on this, Sacha?
Yes. So, all right. I love that topic in general, because the valuation of nature is difficult to really to evaluate, because everything we do should be reflected to that. And I think that I want to hit one note that is maybe not this most favorable in all, but ESG, right? So um, there's a thing currently going on the last few years. You can continue, you can announce net zero and just continue to pollute at will, right? And hiding behind voluntary carbon effects and offsets. So ESG, we both know, means environmental, social, and governance risk, and risk embedded in the business. But in effect, ESG is everything that is not on a company's balance sheet and stated in the earnings. So that is actually what is a little bit flawed in pricing ESG, right? And I tell you why. One out of every three professional managed dollars in the US, at least, is labeled ESG. This is 16 trillion US dollars. In Europe, even more. And if you look back 10 years ago, there was no ESG. It was non-existent to speak of, and you can see therefore that ESG today is a massive investment trend. I don't say it's not good, but ESG can definitely play a role. We need just to recognize that the E itself needs to be priced differently, in my opinion, because how can my personal opinion, how can a fossil fuel company be ESG compliant in total? If you would really put that and recognize it. So my opinion here, take a good look on what is the ESG fund, ask the probing questions, what is good is profitable, should be, what is sustainable environmentally is sustainable economically. That comes to the question what you said. Um, Pricing nature is a bit complicated, but overall, it should be doing the good thing should be less expensive than doing the bad thing in an environmental way. And we are not there yet. What is your take on that, Nathan?
It's very interesting. It got me thinking of the different types of green investment that actually exist. One way to look at it would be to entirely divest from, for example, fossil fuels that you just mentioned, basically creating a vacuum of funding for these organizations to hope that they will wither away. And another approach is, as a famous organization started doing for Shell, the famous oil and gas, NGO started buying shares from Shell up until they had above 5% stake, which allows them to put something on the agenda of the plenary meetings. And this is also a form of sustainable investment in a more circumvented way. Which I find very interesting. And I think this begs the question, and it joins your point, what is a sustainable investment really? Because if you just focus on ESG factors, so if you just look at a given company, look at their ESG estimated performance, actually, if it's not disclosed, and then only use this as your guiding north, then you probably will make some mistake in terms of investment strategy, or you would probably make some mistake, at least in terms of truth to the commitment. Another thought that I have around this is the distinction now between financial and non-financial reporting. One example for this, the EU taxonomy is entering into enforceable full force from the 1st of January, which means that most of the profits from Europe are going to have to report on a number of non-financial indicators, which include ESG, but also go beyond. Yet the distinction remains very specific between what is financial, which is a very established way of reporting, and what is non-financial, which is kind of the rest. And I'm quite interested to see how this is going to play out. And from a normative perspective, I think that eventually they should be somehow merged, or they should be only one a company should be judged on the whole thing rather than A, financial and then B, ESG, or A, financial and then B, sustainability. That is really what I found very interesting about your point.
Yeah, I really love what you said, but coming to the point that we're only going to solve the issue not by making the world just net zero, because we need to diminish, right? And that is one aspect. So you cannot just virtually buy land and just planting trees, to say so, and still continue doing the same. It's like you announce that in 29 years you want to stop smoking, but you keep on smoking the next 29 years. Yeah, I mean, this is not good for your lung as well. So,
I might have been guilty of that a few years
yeah.
back. This is, I think, Sacha, a very good leeway for a topic that I really wanted to mention with you to discuss, which is the elaboration of new models of the economy. So we, again, know that there has been a lot of investment in traditional business model, SaaS platforms, for example, if I take the example of Plan A, but you work on creating a new model that pertains to the family of circular economy. I would love to hear why you think that this is the future, why this is the way forward, and how do you think that these new models are going to be receiving investment funding, and how this will trickle down to the planet, or the other way around?
So to be honest, it is not a model I created, right? It is just a concept of, if you really look into, pretty logical, it should be, because I mean, what we did the last 50, 70 years, we have been in a linear economy, right? And although this linear economy has generated substantial economic growth and material wealth for everyone involved since, yes, actually the Industrial Revolution, it is an underlying model. It is flawed. It is unsustainable, and yes, it will ultimately collapse in the near future. And that's why we need to quit this take from the earth, make something, and then waste it, uh, which we actually have been fed for so long. And I think transitioning to a circular economy, and I come back to that, is going to be vital in general if we want to if we wish to reverse the adverse impacts that everything has on us, on the planet, on our health, and on our future. So basically, a circular economy model, instead of the linearity, is to design products, services, etc., for the fact of being sustainable, of being circular. Um, Meaning you should use everything longer. Not, I mean, it's a really good example, and everybody gets it, right? So not designing products that you cannot upgrade, that you cannot, the software is unupgradable. You throw everything away after part time. Yes, the company makes capital, is number one market cap in the world. Don't mention it, which, and just by, yeah, making everyone buy as much as possible. But it needs also to be a high quality. It needs to be able to fix it. You remember the time you used probably to have a cassette deck, right? So it broke once or twice, and then we took the pen, and then we rewound the cassette, we put it back in. We used to fix it, right? We used to repair stuff and like longer, and that makes a huge difference. And also, if you look on that, you want to give it, and that's what I meant, a second or a third life. And ultimately, and that's one important thing, we need to recycle, or need to be able to put something in production on a product level that comes back. Because ultimately, when we manufacture things, we need to eliminate as much waste production that is going on there, and idealistically use the waste as a resource. And it is possible. There are concepts out there. That is where we are, as at Prime Computer at least, going for. You know why? Because we do not have endless resources. You and I know best, and we do not have time, right? So currently the world is around 8% in a circular economy. That's nuts. The rest not. We just buy and waste it, right? So I have a perfect example in the electronics industry. The biggest waste stream in the world is e-waste. An example, last year, 53 million metric tons of e-waste has been created. This is around 300, the weight of 350 cruise ships. And only 17.8% is recycled. The rest, more than 80%, just lands on landfills. And then people would say, yeah, but we can't. Yes, we can. And it should be way more. We should be using longer than we diminish it. The waste that is not recycled contributes to 4.25% of global gashouse emissions. Nobody knows that. Just the ways of not recycling, and we're adding up every year more and more. I'm sorry, I'm really passionate about that. But yeah, so I think a circular economy in every way of the aspect, right? Less plastic, reducing, more local. There's so many aspects to that. Is one of the big solutions to go to our goal in 2030.
And I think what you say here, Sasha, really shows the multiplicity of the facets of what sustainability is and should be. I waste management being one of the major topics. It's not usually not the sexiest one to talk about, but
Yeah,
definitely a conversation, unpleasant conversation we all need to have, and that concerns e-waste, which is one of the major producer actually of emissions, as you say, and also other types of waste. We had worked actually with a e-waste manager who had presented in a previous event with Plan A all the different ways that you can use also this waste, the so-called urban mining, which allows
yeah,
this is for auditor, you probably are familiar with the concept, Sasha, which consists in getting these phones back, getting these computers back, opening them up to get the precious metal that is needed to create new electronic goods, instead of going to keep on mining them. Mining becoming more and more expensive, more and more polluting, more and more technologically problematic for the planet. Also, do you, maybe Sasha, do you abide by the R principles: reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot? So I'm also a really big believer in this tenet that the design of the product will influence the life of the product and the way that it's being used, and that therefore there should be a rule that states that if it's just a linear, then it cannot be. It should not be, because there is probably another way to design this. So do you have some guiding principles like this as well in the way that you approach circularity?
yes, indeed. So there are actually nine hour framework. There are nine of those. But the basic you understand best, and I as well, are reduce, reuse, and recycle in the basic concept. But you're right. There was just recently this year, not so long ago, that the American government made sure that there's a right to repair. Right. So then Apple needed to change the aspect
Right.
of doing that. That was in the news, and great. I love it because why so late? But yeah, um, at least now they are obligated to put spare parts to be able to repair yourself and all that. But before it was just how can we make as much as capital on the back of society, and I mean good products. I'm not saying it's not a, but the approach in general how to do so. I mean, yeah, so I'm not repeating myself. But the framework, there is a framework on that, obviously, and it is really intense. And what we are doing, for instance, at Prime Computer, is we are getting or pioneering into circular electronics. So actually closing the loop into that aspect of already what you're doing, designing for sustainability, designing now for circularity, and putting the ecosystem, the coalition of the willing together in order to offer that, because that's going to be the future, that you need to, yeah, to use as long as possible to reduce resources. I mean, human population just getting more and more, so we need to adapt things.
You know what I find really really interesting in your approach at Prime Computers, but also in the space that we occupy. Um, on the one hand, we need to accelerate change. Speeding it up is really key, and we need to advance on this much faster than we have done so far. And we're using the companies that are the business approach to actually speed up this change. And I find that these are the fastest vehicles, simply, where that can create the change, especially taking it from the ground up, from these new startups that are arriving to disrupt models. How, do you also believe that businesses can be also the locomotive of this change, can drive this change? Are you confident in the speeding up of this change?
Yes, and I fully agree with you, but maybe we need to clarify it a little bit. Companies alone cannot do that. But yes, I really truly believe that it is our sector that will drive the biggest change. Because, sorry to say, but COP26, so 26 times, and we have not way better results than before. On the contrary, CO2 emissions have risen since. So politics in general are slow. We know that, are not always true to what is needed. And the other way around, you need not to blame also that, but also, I mean, ultimately it's the consumer, right? But the consumer could make the biggest change, the individual, us. But it needs to be on a large scale, and it needs to be kept so affordable. And that's what I meant to the earlier thing. If doing the good thing is cheaper than doing the bad thing, because on the bad thing, for instance, by law there are taxes, then it would drive way faster the good thing. So doing producing products that are CO2 emission free, having services like yours to, to analyze all that, to give the assistance to the companies, and those those things are crucial. And I think that if that is an alignment, and the companies are in between, because companies going to influence the governments, right, big ones, um, but on the other side, they need to make revenue for the consumer, so it needs to be, profitable or not. And there are so many lines. I think we're on a good path. And what I really love, what this talk is also about, is about impact investment. So this has been driving last years, and you saw that a lot of VCs coming out this year just focusing on sustainability, impact, change. How can we reduce CO2 emissions, energy, and it's an exciting time to be in, to be honest.
Absolutely. And this is already, we have so many topics to talk about, Sacha. We have a couple of minutes left before we move over to the other Q&A link that I've just shared in the chat for all the people hearing us. But maybe one last point to what you were saying, pushing money in the right direction. So making sure that investment goes towards impact, that investment becomes impact investment, to make the pricing relevant and reflective of what the nature also contributes. How do we make that better? How do we work on this system, which is let's call it capitalist in the in the original sense of the term, which is driven by the investments. Are we going to be able, you think, to really transform this space, as we have seen already change, but has it been transformed already?
It needs to go a little bit faster. And the thing is, you can do so many good things and change, but you need to stop the bad thing. And the obvious, right? There was one of the biggest topic at the COP is that that the that fossil fuel is still funded by 11 million every minute, right? Subsidiaries to fossil fuel. And then why bother changing so much if that is the biggest contribution to? So I think this needs to change anyway. And I think you're right, pushing money in the right direction could be by penalties on one thing, but it should be more by inclusion. But what do you think on that, Nathan? How should we do that?
I believe very strongly that the sustainable economy will become the main economy. It's already becoming obvious in certain aspects of our lives, of our economy. If you've ever watched, I was watching a football game, and if you look at the ads today during the halftime, all of the cars are the ads for Ford, for all of these manufacturers that are extremely polluting, are for electric cars now. Are for it's the same for if you look at food advertising. I'm a marketer at my career, so I look at this closely. The food that is being put forward is now more and more green, more and more. Whether it is or not is a different question. But what people buy, what people have in their mind to actually invest in, what people have in their mind as the future, is sustainable computers, sustainable models, sustainable food, and so on and so forth. And I believe very strongly that investors are kind of at the beginning and at the end of this circle, in the sense that they invest in businesses, they create a ripple effect that goes throughout the economy and society. But they're also at the tail end of this process, really looking at who is disrupting these different economies, these different verticals, what are consumers actually, how are they transforming? And I believe that this change has accelerated. I agree with you, still distant. It's still conceptual. It's not there yet. But I do believe that at the end of the day, the investors are going to be investing in what's going to bring them money, which is a sustainable model. So I'm quite optimistic in the transformation of this. On the measurement side, on the assessment side, and this is what we started our conversation with, we're still asking a lot of questions. My company does creating transparency and reporting, and this is no small endeavor for large enterprises to capture the data, understand the data as well, in terms of CO2 equivalent, in terms of waste, in terms of net positive, net beneficial for the planet. So there is still a lot to do, but I believe that investors in general are catching up with this concept.
Yes. No, thank you so much. This was a really good ending, actually.
Sacha, this is perfect. Exactly. We are already 1 minute over time. We will see you in the chat. We are just running over there virtually. I have left in the chat the link, upstart.com/Q&A. So pretty easy to remember. I'll see you in a minute. Sacha, thank you so much for participating, for giving us some of your insights, some of your numerous insights. I'll see you in the Q&A as well room, and have a wonderful rest of the day for those who are jumping on different tasks.
Thank you, Nathan. It was a pleasure. See you later.